Guys, this is Ansel of about a 7-minute Medicare Minute. I just want to dive right into some math for you guys because I don't think the warning that I've been shouting for over a year, we're talking almost 2 years now, about Plan N and Plan G stability is really being heard like it should be, especially with some new increases. I want to use an example in the state of Texas with one of the fastest growing, if not one of the larger Medigap carriers that were being sold back in 2022, 2023, going into 2024. So we got a Plan N, it was $100 a month for a male 65. 2024 rate increase comes in and it's, 2023 rate increase comes in at 6%. So it's 65 going to 66, your $100 a month Plan G now becomes 106. Next year, 2024, the rate increase comes in, it's 12%. So that 106 a month Plan N is now 118.72. 2025, last year, block closes, rate increase comes in on Plan N at 28%. So your $118 a month Plan N is now $151.96. 2026 rate increase just got posted. Plan N and Plan G on this carrier is 42.5%. That means your Plan N and Plan G premium went from $100 a month at 65. You're turning 69 now. Your premium's $216.54. The cost sharing Medigap is the future. This conversation I keep hearing in the industry about Plan N carrying stability that Plan G doesn't. I don't see it. I'm hearing that narrative. And then I hear narratives about historical rate increases determining future stability, specifically for Plan N and Plan G. Those plans right now, as far as the carriers I've seen, are unstable. Cost-sharing Medigap plans are the only long-term solution I have seen. I think there's a more nuanced reality that people should buy into. I mean, let's look at this, for instance. Let's look at what most agents want to see, historical rate increases. Agents often say something like, look at this carrier. This company only increased 3% last year. Or so-and-so carrier historically has low increases. Actuarially, historical rate increases are backward-looking, where agents want to consider them forward-looking, as in predicting the future. Historical rate increases don't tell you whether a plan is currently underpriced or overpriced. It doesn't tell you whether the block of business that's open is aging, or if it's accepting too much guaranteed issue business, or if claims and utilization is increasing, or if it's above trend increase, or any of these patterns that have changed. A carrier could have significantly low historical increases and still be underpriced today because they're willing to take a loss knowing they'll make that up in the future. If they're underpriced today, future rate increases have to come. It doesn't matter what has happened historically. And then on the flip side, a carrier could have taken much larger rate increases in the past, and now they're priced more appropriately for future stability. So don't get me wrong. History can provide context, but it has no bearing whatsoever in determining future rate stability. That is a very important distinction that I think as agents we sometimes get caught up in misunderstanding. Medigap is fundamentally a forward-looking pricing model. You've got carriers that are trying to estimate future utilization, future medical inflation, future trend increase, future block aging, future guaranteed issue, future underwritten, future open enrollment. How much new business do we want to bring in? And those variables change constantly based on the current reality of Medicare that we're in. Let's shift then to Plan G and Plan N with this type of thinking. The narrative that these plans are structurally sound is not being reflected in any market that I'm seeing currently. I think it's very important then we separate the plan design, so Plan G and Plan N, from the pricing discipline that you're seeing. So Plan G by design is first dollar coverage after you meet Part B's deductible. That means the claims tend to be higher because members have very minimal cost exposure. Over time then, as that block ages and the utilization on the plans raise, the claims are going to raise. And when claims go up, premiums have to follow. This is not something new. This has always been true. But it doesn't necessarily make Plan G unsustainable by itself. If you have a properly priced Plan G with very conservative assumptions, slower growth increase, you're not trying to gain all the market share you can, and very disciplined underwriting, that Plan G can still be stable over time. However, the real challenge comes when carriers come in priced too aggressively to gain as much of the market share as possible. When you have carriers who are competing based on the lowest upfront premium, it can create a situation where plans are underpriced relative to expected claims. That's why you're seeing a 42.5% rate increase on this carrier. It's not because we had a whoopsie this year. It's because the strategy was to come in with a price that was introductory. It wasn't future stable, right? And then take me to Plan N. Plan N is often described as a cost-sharing alternative to Plan G. But if you examine the cost sharing, it's very modest. At best, I would call it modest. At worst, I'm going to call it almost very little of significance different. Think about this. The difference in a Plan G and a Plan N, other than excess fees, which are rare and potentially very rarely happen, is a $20 copay at the doctor and a $50 copay at the ER, right? In the context of Medicare claims, that limited cost sharing is little to nothing. It may slightly influence utilization and it may slightly improve claims, but it does not fundamentally change the structure of the risk pool. When you've got a Plan N that's 20 to 30% cheaper than a Plan G, and the really only major difference is a $20 copay at the doctor, that doesn't dramatically structurally shift Plan N to be somehow significantly more stable. And why it's important not to overstate Plan N as a long-term solution. I'm running into agents that are doing this. Just pop YouTube up right now about Plan N. The plans like a high deductible G, an innovative Plan G, or anything that has higher member exposure structure should carry meaningful stability because it carries meaningful cost sharing. And meaningful cost sharing does translate to reduced utilization, reduced claims, improved block health, and stabilized claims, right? So from a structural standpoint, cost-sharing designs have a significant advantage over plans like F, G, B, C, and N that don't have that built-in cost sharing, or at least to the degree that an innovative or high-deductible G does. Even cost-sharing plans can become unstable. I mean, if you have a high-deductible G or innovative G that's too underpriced or grows way too quickly, or its risk selection deteriorates, or it starts taking on too much guaranteed issue business, of course, we're going to come back then to pricing discipline. Ultimately, no Medigap plan is immune to poor pricing discipline. Plan design matters, of course, but pricing discipline for the long term matters more than what plan you're choosing. So where does this leave us then? A more balanced view, in my opinion, for agents is that historical rate increases can provide some context, but they do not predict future increases. Plan G and Plan N are not inherently unsustainable, but they are more sensitive to pricing discipline and utilization trends than cost-sharing Medigap plans. The cost-sharing designs may offer structural advantages, and they're not a guaranteed solution, but they carry less risk in the market, right? The real determinant of stability is pricing discipline, block management, risk selection, and growth strategy. Those are variables that vary carrier to carrier, which is why, at least I believe agents should be conscious about drawing these grandiose conclusions based solely on historical rate increases, or these conclusions based historically on a Plan N just because somebody told you that, or the positioning that someone has their premium when someone's aging into Medicare. Shift your conversation more towards durability. Which carriers have discipline? Which carriers are growing responsibly? Which plans are priced more for long-term stability? At the end of the day, stability in Medigap is not determined by historical increases alone. In fact, very little is determined by historical increases. Stop projecting historical increases forward. It has nothing to do with the future. It's determined by how carriers manage their risk going forward. That is where the true analysis begins and ends.